All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am excited today because we're going to be talking with Kitty Hart, and we are going to be talking about building brand experiences. Kitty, first of all, Kitty is the VP of Client Brand Experience with Heroic Productions. Just want to make sure
Yes.
I got that in there. So, Kitty, thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's going to be awesome because we have a lot to talk about. We were
Mhm.
talking about as we were coming on, good stuff there, and just thinking about this, I was getting excited because there are so many different ways that brands evoke emotions,
Mhm.
and I have to imagine that some of that is planned, hopefully,
Mhm. Yep.
and some of it is enhanced by some of the events they use.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's a fun topic.
oh, yes, yes, yes. So, Kitty, first of all, we like to understand our guests and how they got into what they're doing because that's,
Mhm.
not everybody just walks out and says, "Hey, I'm going to help big brands put together these awesome events." So, can you share that
True.
with us?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. It was sort of a windy road to get here. And I actually, when I talk with young people about, what they want to do, and so many of them feel that they need to know what they want to do right away, like either going into college or, when they leave college. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do after I graduated. I had a liberal arts degree, so I had a really good, solid education, broad education, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I floundered around for a little bit, and at some point, I decided I wanted to go into sales, which was very surprising to me. But having sort of floundered around for a while and observed different careers and different companies, I looked at it and viewed it as an opportunity for me to have the most control over my own success or failure. Right? If you're selling,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
bringing in business, you're a valuable asset to the company. So I got lucky. I ended up finding a company in Chaska, Minnesota. This was mid '90s, and they were at the forefront of video marketing. Do you do you remember those
Wow.
days, Damon? Does that ring a bell?
Like, yes, when what was the music channel, VH1 actually played music or yeah, MTV and VH1 just played music, yeah.
Yes. Yep. Well, so there were big brands. There were marketers that were basically saying, hey, you can have more of a one-on-one connection with people if you create short form video and drop these video cassettes into the mail. So you might remember
Wow.
back getting a
Yeah.
videotape in the mail, right? Okay, so a good example would be Disney. So
Mhm.
you're thinking about going to a Disney vacation, you see a commercial, they say call 1-800 for more information. You call, you talk to somebody, they ask you a bunch of questions and they put you into a category. Okay, this is a senior couple and they're taking their whole family. Well, that's going to be a very different kind of trip than people
Mhm.
that might be going honeymooning. Okay. And yes, people do honeymoon in Disney. So very different trips, but then a very customized video would be sent to that person,
Mhm.
and that helped them convert that inquiry into, okay, yep, I'm going to Disney. So that's what we did. It was a manufacturing company, but we were selling to ad agencies and marketing companies. And again, the big brands who said, I get it. I want to put a 5-minute video out into the mail. It was a vibrant business for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of started to ramp down, unfortunately, after 9/11. But I was there for 7.5 years, and that's really where I learned how to sell. And then when I was ready to leave there, I just basically went down the marketing path.
Mhm.
I wasn't a marketing major at Gustavus. I was a communications major, but I was intrigued by marketing. And so that's basically what sent me down this road.
Very cool. Very cool. So, what is it that you like the best about working at Heroic and helping people with these brand experiences now?
So what we do at Heroic is a segment of, marketing is this big, broad umbrella.
Hmm.
And after I left that company, then my path really was in branding and experiential. And here at Heroic, it is corporate event marketing. So the work that we do for our clients, we help them design and execute big corporate events. So where they're bringing hundreds or thousands of their employees together for an immersive experience. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of logistics, but it's super super creative. It is. I compare it to creating a stage production. It's no different than going to a theater and watching a production. A curtain may not
Hmm.
go up, but we are setting a stage and we are making sure that the people on stage are seen, heard, and felt. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we were talking before, I was just at a big event last week, and I was thinking about it as I was in the event about all the things that are happening because there are a lot of lights and a lot of other things.
Hmm.
Now, you you probably, I mean, all of that is planned down to the clothes that
Every
people are wearing,
minute.
everything.
Every minute, absolutely. Because if any moment is not planned, you lose control.
Okay.
And when you're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more,
Yeah.
against an invest, that's an investment. Um, you can't run that risk.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there are so many people that come together to create these events. There are project managers and producers. There are, a lot of these big companies, they've got really robust event marketing departments. So they're taking the lead on a lot of that, but then it's important that they pick a production partner that can come in and execute and be the expert as far as the staging design and the audio and the video and the lighting, to make sure that those things are solid. And when that speaker steps out onto the stage, he or she doesn't have to worry. That mic is going to be on. That light is going to be on them. Their confidence monitor is right there where it needs to be, or the teleprompter. These are the things that are behind the scenes that the audience never sees, and they're
Hmm.
incredibly important.
No doubt. You just said about 100 things that was racing through my mind because everything from just a little, like you said, not little, but making sure that the mic was tested before you put it onto somebody's clothing, and making sure
Yes.
that they've got the teleprompter so they can read it. Because if it's a
Mhm.
tall person, if it's a shorter person,
Mhm.
or
Right.
where they're going to be standing,
Right.
and uh, wow, it's
Well,
like
and
it's
there's
like
and
it's
there's
a TV
always a
show.
rehearsal.
Yeah,
There's
I was going to say it's got to be like a TV show.
absolutely, and there has to be a rehearsal so that, I mean, one of the things you don't want to happen is for that person to hear the first word out of the mic for the first time when they're delivering their first words, because
Hmm.
that can be a jarring thing. You're in a ballroom, you're in a stadium, whatever the venue might
Wow.
be. That's not something that you do every day, where you talk into a
Hmm.
mic and now all of a sudden it is throughout this entire room. So there's a lot that goes into making sure that the executive team that are the speakers, the people who are delivering the education, whoever's delivering the sessions, that they're comfortable with that, and that when they step out there to deliver their portion of it, they're solid, they feel good, they should feel like a rock star.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can imagine that this is, I mean, because this is something that people aren't generally doing, right? You're not generally going to be doing this in that type of setting. So, how much of this is just helping the people get comfortable with it, and going through the process enough so that they really do begin to feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, some are more comfortable than others. like that event that you were telling me about last week. That's a really sophisticated company.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee that CEO that stepped out and spoke, um, that's a daily that's a
Yes.
daily occurrence. So some people are very, very comfortable with that. And so it's important early on to understand. And, we ask this question to our clients' project team. What's the comfort level of the speakers? How much uh, it's hand holding, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much pr- um, comforting do they need? How much practice do they need? And nobody is judged for that. Like we've just acknowledged it's not an everyday thing. So yeah, we assess that, and then we determine, what can we do to make that person feel at ease.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Really
so
cool.
yeah.
Really cool. Well, I just had, we have got a couple comments here, but John Mark Young says he's watching the big smile. Know we hired this rock star for a heroic. Good conversation with John. Awesome.
John
That's
is
great.
my boss.
Ah, great. Great. Awesome. Awesome, John. And we got Shaz is also here today. This is really cool though, because you're getting into the behind the scenes part of this, and that is super important, I think, in companies that really want to understand how to do these events, these corporate
Mhm,
events that really either for employees or you talked about beforehand, and we'll get into this a little bit, for a product launch or
mhm.
something like that, or an award, type setting. So what is the most fun part of this for you guys at Heroic? What is it when you just sit back and just go, "Woo, this was a good time."
I think it's seeing a concept come to fruition. So, and it takes a long time for that to happen. I mean, when we're working through the process with our clients, we might be starting a year out. Hopefully, we're starting a year out, right? We
Yeah.
have seen timeframes get shorter and shorter over time, but this is a long process, and so we get pulled in early, and it's very conceptual. And so I think what's really exciting, and I see this with our team, I see them walk through the process with our clients and go from ideas to designed renderings of what the room is going to look like or the staging is going to look like, and then to the actual day of event. So, if you're ever on site for an event, I always encourage people to be on comm. So that basically means that you've got a headset on and you're listening to the production team. They don't let a lot of people do that, but it's a really good way for people to really understand all of the moving parts behind the scene. And that
Mhm.
is fascinating. So you hear the executive producer, and you hear all of the different key roles represented, and you hear them all perfectly communicating with each other. And then
Wow.
at the end, when it wraps, it's like I think back to, so I was a theater person in high
Mhm.
school. And, I remember when we would get done with a show, how, the curtain would go down and it would just be this explosion of clapping and just celebrating ourselves for the
Yeah.
completion of an amazing show. It's no different here. It's our job to make sure that our clients, so, and this gets to the name Heroic Productions. We're not the hero in this world that we are in. It's our job to make sure our client is the hero.
Mhm.
And when we can close out an event, and again, we look at that long path from concept and renderings to all of the documentation and the schedules and the spreadsheets and all of that, to the clapping, the accolades from the audience. That's what we love doing. And then we know that our client is happy.
Mhm.
That's our job.
Yeah, because this is probably a bad comparison, but it's like planning for a wedding. the whole you do all this planning, and the wedding's about this much of it, and that flies by like that. But everybody's just exuberated because it went well and
Yeah.
everything
Yep.
happens nicely.
It's that's a production as well. Now, some of our events are 4 or 5 days long.
Oh,
So it can be
yeah,
grueling, right? It can be grueling, and so you have to have a team that has the stamina to be able to, manage those long days, and you're on. The show
yeah,
must go on, right?
yeah. That's a great point because, like the event I was at last week, it started in the morning and didn't end until after dinner at night.
Yeah.
And if
Mhm.
you're the team that's putting that on in the background and with multiple sessions, with other things all running concurrently,
Yeah.
there is a ton of coordination that has to happen. And each one of those sessions have to have people in them working in
Mhm.
there and making sure the audio, the
Yep.
production, everything works.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, in staffing that, our team will look at that and say, okay, should we have, um, I mean, you have team members come in and out. Basically, you
Hmm.
need your people to be fresh. Um,
Yeah.
so that's part of the planning as well, giving
Yeah.
all of that thought and how to manage the crew.
Yeah. So when you talk about experiential marketing, and I know you guys do events,
Hmm.
and that's cool. We're going to talk about some of the cool events you do. I'm really amazed at some of these other kind of things because when you look at a company, like one that always sticks out in my mind is Red Bull. I mean, just
Yeah.
the crazy stunts that they're going to do, the things they're going to do to do that. Do you think that companies that are doing that kind of experiential marketing is driving what's happening in these corporate events to go a little further, a little differently?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, the stunts, Red Bull is an amazing brand to watch. They're fun, no doubt. And that shock value and the
Yeah.
risks, that's in their brand DNA. It's expected of them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think any brand can look at examples like that and take something from it. You might not have a super, super corporate event, a super, super corporate company decide to have a ski jump
Yeah.
outside at one of their events. But I think what it does is it drives a constant focus on creativity and not
Hmm.
just always doing the same thing over and over again. Our clients expect us to have new ideas because, again, a lot of these clients, they do it every year.
Yeah.
You can't bring people in and just do the same thing year after year. So yeah, I think it drives creativity for
Yeah.
sure. And I think the best companies and the smartest creative teams are looking outside of their industry on a regular basis to just be inspired by them, to just take
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah. Because you hit it there. Because if you're a company and you're doing these events every year, I'm doing my awards, whatever, every year, it's going to get pretty stale if you're doing these 10 years, 15 years in a row,
Yeah.
and really changing them up, making them interesting for the people. And then also, as we see now, we got 4 generations of people working in the workplace,
Mhm.
which even compounds it even more.
Yes, it does. Right. How do you engage that age span?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that takes some.
I bet there's some interesting conversations around that alone.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what are Kitty,
Mhm.
what is your favorite type of event to do?
Favorite type of event? Um, well, I do like the events that bring in, a lot of music, a lot of really, impactful, lighting shows, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
I think it's become harder and harder to surprise and delight people. but that's one way that you can do it. So when people walk in again, so let's say that the venue is a big Hilton somewhere, Hilton Hotel. We do a lot of events at Hilton's, beautiful hotels, but you're walking into just a big ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an opportunity to transform that space. And it's not just visual, but it's also through um, through the music, the people on the stage. Are we going to bring in a really hot new speaker, keynote speaker? Are we going to bring in an A-list entertainer? Brands are doing this, and it is affordable. You can afford to bring in an A-list entertainer, especially for these for these big brands
Mm-hmm.
that are doing it year after year. But so I love the events that infuse that into their experience,
Yeah.
because it's such a simple thing, and it is also one of those things that I think can be um, undervalued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you think about it, the difference in the environment, if you have good music and good lighting that's pleasing, that really is stimulating your mind,
Hmm.
um, compared to something that's just like you said, a ballroom, just a plain
Yeah,
ballroom.
yeah.
It's a completely different experience. And then if you add, like you said, a, a really rock star keynote speaker or A-list
Hmm.
entertainer to really get people fired up or opened up and rolling the way you want, that
Yeah,
event is
yeah.
completely different from the beginning.
Completely different. And I think too, one of the nice things is that oftentimes these, high level, um, the high level talent, they're not necessarily just going to do their thing and scoot out the back door. They are oftentimes willing to have a presence there. So you get an opportunity to actually meet this person, have a
Hmm.
conversation with them, get an autograph, something like that. So that's something that is really, really easy to infuse. But I'll say this, that when we think about the senses. As human beings, we have these senses. When you can infuse as many of the senses as possible into an experience, you have a greater opportunity to create an impactful experience. It's those senses
Hmm.
that drive our memories. It's
Yeah.
those experiences that bring brands and people closer together.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring so much good stuff. So
So
much good stuff.
here's a little tidbit, Damon. Did you know that there are at least one Major League Baseball stadium that pumps in a specific scent into their environment?
Ooh,
Do you
no,
know what it
that's
is?
what it's like, a hot dog smell or is it
So hot
green
dog is a
grass
common
smell?
answer. Popcorn is a common answer. It's actually cotton candy.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
these are normal scents that they spark a memory, right? These are things that they're going to take us all back to our childhood.
Mhm.
You're going to start salivating. You're going to get hungry. And so that's a lot of people don't even know that's happening, but that's a good
Yeah.
example of how to use scent. Hotels
Yeah.
use it too. They create custom scents.
Yep. You can tell that when you go
Yeah.
to the different hotels.
Yeah.
It's and
It's
you it
everywhere in Vegas.
yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, it is. You walk into any place and you know where you're at.
Hmm.
Ah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So, you like these events where we're really getting the lighting, the music, and
Hmm.
things like that. So, what has been one of the most challenging events you've had to pull off or
Oh
been a
boy.
part of?
One of the most challenging. So we did a really beautiful event last year for a major beauty brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would put it into the challenging category just because it was a multiple day and very, very high. I mean, all of our clients have high expectations, but
Mm-hmm.
very, very high expectations around the staging. And the client infused the whole concept here. A focus of the event was a full on fashion show. So it was a hair care product.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of the 3 or 4 days, there were demonstrations on stage showing different treatments for hair, cuts, etc. And then the pinnacle was a full-on fashion show. So
Wow.
a full-on runway with models, and there's a lot of the securing the models, the wardrobe,
Mm-hmm.
makeup, all of that. There's teams that handle, so we didn't necessarily have to handle all of that. But that was one of the bigger events that we've done. And so I put it into that challenging category because they were very long days. It was one of those just thumping shows, to the point where when you are done with the day, you're like, it's a lot. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and really, the team, we are part of keeping that pace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're
It's
responsible for keeping that going.
yes. And keeping the energy in the room and the
Yep.
people upbeat and everything
Mhm.
going. And it's just,
Yep. And they're choreographed to the T. We were talking a little bit before we jumped on live here that every moment, I think it was before we went live, every moment is thought through,
mm-hmm.
because it has to be. If you don't, then you run the risk of forgetting something falling through the cracks. And moments like that, what that can do to the whole experience can be devastating. So we don't
Yeah.
we don't run that risk. We, along with our clients, think through every single moment of that event. So, I mean, it was basically like putting on a full-on runway fashion show. Very exciting,
Yeah.
very fun, very
Yeah.
challenging.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And it's the more I sit here and think about it, I'm feeling like those kind of events, you just have to be drained when you're done with a day like that
Mhm.
as being behind it. That's
Yeah.
cool though. I mean, but it's fun. It's good seeing the thing, but I think it's just so much
Yeah.
work to keep everything rolling. And so one of the questions is I work with a lot of executives. So how many
Mhm.
times do you get the executive says, yeah, 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 whatever. Just tell me where I need to be and I'll show up on that day.
Often. Yeah, that's often, and that's totally fine because he's trusting his team.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, he's trusting his event team, because they've probably done it many times,
Hmm.
and what we hear from that, I mean, more than likely, that's a very experienced executive. So
Yeah.
great,
The
perfect.
speaking's not a big deal. They've done it
Yeah,
before, so that's it's not quite the risk that if it was their first time out or anything. And
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I just think that would be a little bit frustrating if they were key to that and they were like, nah, I'm just not going to be able to be there. So,
Mm-hmm.
so you talked about before we got on that you guys do product launches. And I think some of these things that they do are absolutely phenomenal now when you talk
Mm-hmm.
about product launches. What are some of the exciting things you're seeing as people are launching new products now? Different concepts, different, getting the customers in. What are really some of the cool things that you're seeing in that world?
Yeah, so product launches are a pretty normal type of corporate event. But I would say that those product launches are still infusing a lot of the same components that we've been talking about here. It's all about, so there's going to be education, there's going to be entertainment, there's
Hmm.
going to be networking, people coming together. So I think one of one of the components that would be fairly, if we're talking a consumer brand, one of the oldest forms of experiential marketing is sampling, right? And
Yeah.
that goes all the way back to the 1800s. I think sometimes people don't forget that, or people forget that experiential marketing isn't necessarily new. It's one of the
Yeah.
oldest forms of marketing. So getting product into people's hands, giving them an opportunity to touch it, feel it, experience it, that's certainly something that is important, especially with consumer brands. But with B2B brands, again, it's a ton of education. And so the key is that you have to make the education engaging.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
nothing worse than going into a room and it's death by PowerPoint. So,
Mhm.
again, for these sophisticated companies, they know the importance of their designed assets. So, just like you and I are sitting here on this platform, this is beautifully designed. We've got your brand there. For the people who are tuning in, they're not just looking at a Zoom screen. This is a designed asset. So, it's important to build design into the education that happens
Mhm.
throughout the event. It's very, very important. And then also giving people an opportunity to just have some um, recreational time, right?
Mhm.
And that would apply across any of these events that
Yeah.
we do as well. Get them out, seeing whatever is happening around in the city where the event is taking place. The whole point here, and this is why most of the work that we do is not in Minnesota. Our crews are traveling all the time. Most
Mhm.
of our clients, when they do these events, they want to take their team somewhere else. It's really important to get people out of their normal environment
Mhm.
and into a completely different environment where they can really take in what's happening around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the most interesting place you've had to go?
Well, you know what? One of them was right here in our backyard. So having just said that, one of them was right here in our backyard. Minneapolis hosted Super Bowl a few years ago. It was Super
Mhm.
Bowl 52. And Heroic was one of the major partners for all of the audio, video, and lighting for that event. So, and
Wow.
it was cold, right? So Super Bowl happens, what is it, the first weekend of
Yes.
February?
February, it's like
Yep.
ugly time to be in Minnesota.
Yes. And so our crews were, again, long days outside, sub-zero. But that event was incredible because it took place along Nicollet Mall, which is, I don't remember how many streets it is, but it was set up with little vignettes, basically little stages for bands. That one actually had a slope, a ski slope. There was a snowmobiler that did a loop-de-loop
Oh,
over
wow.
that. I should know his name and I can't remember. Levi. Is
Oh,
this ringing a bell?
yep.
Levi something. Yes. Um, so right here in our backyard, that
Yeah.
was that was amazing. And I think our whole team really, even though absolutely there was grumblings, when it's
Oh,
10
yeah.
below and you're having to do what you do, but when it was all said and done, being able to be involved in such an amazing event right here in our city,
Yeah.
that was pretty special.
No doubt, because that's an all-out world-class event to be
Mhm.
involved, just to be a part of any of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. What blows me away about that is that so our US Bank Stadium, which is a beautiful facility,
mhm.
seats, I wanna say 60,000 people. So, while only 60,000 people sat down and watched that game, there were over 1,000,000 people that came to Minneapolis.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
that's your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there's that many people
Mhm.
came be outside of the game.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. I don't even know what to say after that. I had no idea that you guys are involved in a Super Bowl because that is literally what
Yeah.
there might be some World Cup events or something like that
Mhm.
compared to it in other places, but in the United States, that's got to be
Yeah.
the World Series or the basketball playoffs or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's huge. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing. Team
Yeah.
still talks about it.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So, what do you think is up and coming things that you see that you haven't seen before that's happening in these corporate events?
I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with AI. We're having a lot of conversations on this topic. Uh,
Ah,
I I don't have any predictions for you specifically, but that will impact our business in some way. It will
mhm.
impact everyone's business in some way.
Oh,
So
yes.
we've got our eye on that. Just making sure that we are educating ourselves and looking at that. We've got a technology in house right now that is a hologram,
Oh, wow.
and hologram technology isn't new, but it continues to be perfected. And so we've got this real. It's called Proto. It's a very cool. It's a large box basically, and it allows you to beam someone in. The creativity that I think is going to happen around that will
Yeah.
be fun to see what we and our clients do with that. So here's an example. So let's say you've got a CEO that isn't able to be in 5 locations at once. This allows them to do that. Yes, there's gear and equipment involved, and yes, there's a cost to it, but seeing it in real life, it is incredible. It is like there is a person standing inside this box. It's incredible.
Wow.
So
That
yeah,
is
technology will just keep evolving.
that is amazing. That is amazing because I noticed when I was reviewing your website, you were talking a bit about hybrid because I think that what you're talking about right there takes it to a whole different level
Mhm.
because you could have 1,000 sites around the world, and that CEO could speak to each one of those sites like they were in the room.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and hybrid. Thank you for mentioning that. So we went 100% hybrid during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, we were crazy busy during the pandemic. So for our clients who just said, we can't do nothing. Okay, let's do a virtual event. And so what we've seen now is that once people were ready to be back in person, they were back in a big way. So we
Hmm.
became crazy busy right away. Most of our events are in person, but some are infusing a virtual piece. And so that's the hybrid. So you might
Hmm.
still have people who don't want to travel. There's some of those
Yeah.
people out there. You may
Yeah.
have companies who say, okay, our budget isn't quite that big, so we're not going to be able to bring Southeast Asia in for this
Hmm.
event. So infusing a hybrid event, there's a place for that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, infusing a virtual piece. There's a place for that. The nice thing is that it's doable.
Hmm.
And I mean, we figured it out really fast.
Yes. Yes. Well, and that's you make a great point because I've always, after we all had to go through the virtual everything, I think there's a really nice place for it now. Now,
Mhm.
when we look at events, when we look at corporate gatherings in general, because if it doesn't make sense to take 2,000 people, take the, take the 500 that really need to be there, and
Mhm.
everybody else can get in at their convenience.
Yeah.
And you can, because if you look at the kinds of money that a corporation has to spend, and if it's the right thing to do, by spend that and more, but there are times when it's marginal, for the people themselves. Even it's like,
Mhm.
well, really. if you're that ambiguous about it, well, maybe a
Yeah.
virtual or hybrid thing is really good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, on the other end, for the events themselves, when you have people that are doing, when you talk about the big speakers and things like that, they're out on their huge circuits and stuff. I think this part of that, it really opened a whole new way to
Mhm.
them. But man, the hologram thing, that's cool as heck.
Yeah.
You guys just got it like in 2 rooms and you're playing with it and stuff. So
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
do that all day long. I would probably even if John hears me, I'm going to give you an idea, John. Put it into someone's office that you want to play a joke on and just turn it on and you're in that office every
Oh my
once in
God,
a
it's
while.
a good idea.
That's it. I would do that a heartbeat. It would be moving. Oh. So, but it's great. This is really cool, Kitty. I mean, wow, you've just opened the backside of these events, these corporate events, talked about some of the great things you guys are doing to help these companies engage their people, to
Mhm.
launch products, to really show their people that they care and introduce people to what they do. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it. Happy to come back and talk again at another time.
Oh, it would be awesome. Oh, and John said he's already done it. Good guy. John, I'm high-fiving you right there. That would
Oh
be
my.
funny. But don't try to do that at home.
No.
That would not work well.
No. No.
So, Kitty, thanks so much for being here once again. I want to thank everyone who stopped by, dropped the comments. Shaz, John, thanks for dropping yours in there. We got Flora. She's talking about energy experience. We got my buddy Curtis Tompkins. Thanks for being here. We got Arnaud. I think I said it right.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot. We will be back again later this week with another guest on the Faces of Business. But today we had Kitty Hart talking about building brand experiences. She is the VP of Client Brand Experience at Heroic Productions. Check them out. What is the best way if people want to learn more about Heroic,
Mhm.
Kitty? Where do they go?
Yes, heroic-productions.com is our website. You can find me on LinkedIn, and my email address is khart@heroic-productions.com. So
Awesome.
any of those ways, would love to have a
Awesome.
conversation.
Awesome. Thanks again, everyone. We'll be back again later. Kitty, hold on for a moment and we'll finish.